My name is Alex. I'm 42 years old, and up until recently, I thought I had a fairly ordinary life. I've been married to my wife, Melissa, for almost 12 years. We met in our late 20s at a mutual friend's wedding. She was witty, charming, and had this fire in her that made everything around her feel more alive. I fell hard and fast, and I thought she did too. We built a life together, got a decent house in the suburbs, stable jobs, and even adopted a dog named Murphy. We didn't have kids, but we talked about it on and off over the years. Melissa said she wasn't sure she wanted children, and I respected that. I figured as long as we had each other, everything would be fine. But everything wasn't fine. Not really. For the past year or so, something had changed. Melissa became distant. Not cruel, just cold. Like a light had dimmed in her eyes. Conversations became shallow. Physical affection was rare. And whenever I asked if something was wrong, she brushed it off, just tired. She'd say, "Work's been a lot." And I believed her. Or maybe I just wanted to. But I started noticing patterns. She was always texting, always smiling at her phone when she thought I wasn't looking. She started going out more, saying she needed space or time to think. I didn't want to be the jealous, controlling husband, so I gave her the space she asked for. I didn't realize she was creating a world where I no longer fit. Then came the conversation that changed everything. We were sitting in the living room one Friday night. Melissa looked serious, like she had been rehearsing something in her head for days. She turned to me and said, "Alex, I think I need some time away to figure out my feelings. I don't know who I am anymore. I need to get clarity." I stared at her. "What do you mean away?" "Like a break." She nodded. "Just for a month. I want to stay at Greg's." Greg was our next-door neighbor. Divorced, mid-40s, a little too friendly with Melissa, if I'm honest. I always thought something about him was off, but I trusted my wife. And now she was telling me she wanted to go live with him? "Greg." I repeated, my voice nearly a whisper. "Why Greg?" "He offered," she said quickly. "He has the space, and it's not permanent. I just need a quiet place away from us. I'll still go to work. I'll still take Murphy on the weekends. But I need this, Alex." I sat there, stunned. I wanted to scream, to ask what was really going on. But I didn't. I just nodded. Maybe part of me hoped she'd realize she missed me. That she'd come back after this soul-searching month with tears in her eyes, realizing I was the one. So she packed a bag, kissed Murphy, and walked out the door. That first week was hell. I barely slept. Every time I looked at the bed, I saw the empty side. Every time I fed Murphy, I imagined her doing the same across the fence. I checked her social media, nothing. Just vague inspirational quotes and filtered pictures of lattes and sunsets. But I wasn't completely blind. I saw the signs now. I began talking to mutual friends, asking gentle questions. And slowly, things started to click. Melissa hadn't just gone to figure things out. She was already in something with Greg. It wasn't official, but they'd been emotionally entangled for months. One of Melissa's coworkers hinted that they were always flirting at local events. Someone else said they'd seen them having dinner alone, twice, long before she moved out. That was the switch. The moment I realized I had been played, not pitted. So I stopped waiting. I stopped hoping. I started planning. Melissa thought I would just be sitting there, in our house, like some loyal fool waiting for her return. She had no idea I was making moves. Quietly. Strategically. First, I contacted a lawyer. Then I pulled every financial record we shared, joint accounts, the mortgage, insurance policies. I began moving things into my name or closing out shared funds where legally allowed. I wasn't petty. I was smart. Melissa hadn't filed anything official. She was still in limbo, and I was making sure she wouldn't leave me hanging high and dry. Next, I began preparing the house for sale. It was under both our names, but I had contributed the down payment, and I had the receipts. I cleaned it up, took new photos, contacted a real estate agent, and started the process. I even found a new place for myself, smaller, but modern. Cozy. Mine. And then, I dropped the bomb. Melissa came by one afternoon to pick up Murphy. She walked in like she still owned the place, wearing new clothes, fake smile, smelling like someone else's cologne. "Hey," she said, casually, like we were still okay. I handed her the leash and then gave her the folder. "What's this?" she asked. "The listing agreement," I said. "The house is going up for sale next week. I've moved most of my stuff already. Here's the schedule for showings." Her eyes widened. "You're selling our house?" I didn't even blink. "No, I'm selling my house. You left." "I didn't leave," she stammered. "I said I needed space." "And you got it," I cut her off. You moved in with the neighbor to find yourself. Well, I found myself too. And he's not a guy who gets humiliated and waits around like a puppy. I'm done, Melissa. She stared at me, speechless. But I wasn't done yet. Also, I said calmly, the lawyer will be in touch next week. I'm filing. It's over. She tried to argue, but it was all noise. I had tuned her out the way she had tuned me out months ago. She thought I'd be there when she got back. But I wasn't. She stood there, stunned. I could almost see her brain trying to rewind the moment, trying to catch where she lost control of the situation. Melissa had always been good at controlling narratives, telling her side in just the right way to make herself the victim, or the hero, depending on what she needed. But not this time. For once, I was the one steering the ship. I can't believe you're doing this, she said finally, her voice rising. I tilted my head. You can't believe I'm doing this? You walked out of our marriage and moved in with the guy next door. What did you think was going to happen? That I'd come back and we'd talk, she snapped. That we'd work it out. You didn't want to work it out, I replied quietly. You wanted to keep me on standby, like an emotional backup plan in case things with Greg didn't pan out. Well, guess what? I'm nobody's second choice. Not anymore. Melissa didn't take Murphy with her that day. She stormed out, still holding the folder I had given her, slamming the door so hard the frame rattled. I stood in the silence afterward and felt something I hadn't felt in months, relief. It wasn't over yet, but it was starting to be. The next few weeks were a blur of paperwork and logistics. I filed for divorce, citing abandonment. My lawyer moved quickly. It helped that Melissa had technically left voluntarily, and that I had documentation of her living arrangement with Greg. I kept everything civil, but firm. No open doors. No room for negotiation. Melissa tried to reach out several times. First through texts, long, emotionally manipulative ones about how I was being cold and unreasonable. Then, through friends. One of her friends, Jessica, messaged me saying Melissa was confused and just needed support. I replied once. She had my support. She chose someone else. I didn't respond again. One night, maybe 2 weeks into the process, Greg himself showed up at my door. Now that, I didn't expect. He was standing there in his fleece jacket, looking more uncomfortable than smug. I opened the door, didn't invite him in. Hey, he said, rubbing the back of his neck. Can we talk? I folded my arms. I think we're past that. It's not what you think, he said quickly. Melissa, she said you guys were basically over. That she just needed space. I didn't mean to step in the middle of anything. I gave him a flat look. Greg, she lives with you. Don't play innocent. He flushed a little. I'm just saying I didn't want to cause trouble. If I'd known it was still serious. I cut him off. You knew exactly what you were doing. You thought I'd roll over and let her bounce between us. But I'm not that guy. And if you think she won't do to you what she did to me, you're a bigger fool than I thought. He didn't say much after that. Just gave a weak nod and walked away. I never saw him on my porch again. Meanwhile, Melissa's life was unraveling. She moved back out of Greg's place, apparently after some fight I didn't care enough to ask about. She tried staying with a cousin, then a friend, but neither lasted. Eventually, she messaged me asking if she could come home, just for a few days, she wrote. Until I figure things out. I didn't reply. Because while she was trying to figure things out, I had already figured out who I was without her. I finished moving into my new place, a modern condo about 15 minutes from my old neighborhood. It wasn't huge, but it was perfect for me. Clean lines, lots of light, and most importantly, peace. No silent tension hanging in the rooms. No walking on eggshells, wondering if I was being good enough for someone who'd already checked out. I started hitting the gym again. Not to impress anyone, just for me. Started cooking real meals, not just microwave dinners. Spent time with friends I hadn't seen in years. Even reconnected with my brother, who I'd drifted from during the later years of my marriage. And somewhere in the middle of all that, I smiled for real. Not just polite, going through the motions smiles, but actual, soul-deep smiles. I felt lighter, freer. And then came the final meeting. Melissa and I sat in a lawyer's office, finalizing the divorce. She looked tired. Older, somehow. Like the stress had finally caught up to her. I looked at her and didn't feel anger anymore. Just a strange kind of sadness. Not because I wanted her back, but because I had wasted so much time trying to be enough for someone who never intended to stay. At the end of the meeting, she hesitated. Alex, I didn't think you'd really let me go. I met her eyes. You never gave me a reason to hold on. She nodded slowly, but I could see the regret blooming behind her gaze. It was too late. She knew it. I knew it. And then we signed. Afterward, I walked out of that office and didn't look back. About a month after the divorce was finalized, I got a message from a mutual friend. Melissa had moved out of state, apparently to stay with her aunt. Word was, she and Greg were completely done. She'd burned through a few bridges, tried to reconnect with old friends, but most people weren't eager to take sides, and fewer still had any sympathy left for her. I didn't gloat. Honestly, I didn't care anymore. That part of my life felt like a different person's story. What I did care about was what came next for me. I had no grand revenge plan. No dramatic ending where I got rich overnight or found the perfect new woman who swept me off my feet. But I did get something far more valuable: clarity, peace, control over my own life again. I started volunteering on weekends, helping out at a local shelter, mentoring younger guys who'd gone through rough breakups or divorces. You'd be amazed how many men walk around with scars they never talk about. Just having someone say, "Hey, I've been there," makes a difference. I got promoted at work. Not because I was trying to prove anything, but because once I wasn't constantly drained by my marriage, I had the energy to actually focus again. My coworkers noticed. My boss noticed. I started sleeping better, laughing more. Then one afternoon, I took Murphy for a walk in the park. It was a crisp, sunny day, the kind that feels like the world is giving you a second chance. We passed a woman reading on a bench. She smiled at Murphy, and he wagged his tail like he always did when someone gave him attention. We struck up a conversation. Her name was Claire. She was smart, kind, asked thoughtful questions, and laughed at my dumb jokes. We didn't fall in love overnight or anything cliché like that. But it was easy, natural. We started seeing each other slowly, intentionally. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was auditioning for someone else's life. I was just living mine. Melissa reached out one last time. It was a short email. No manipulations, no guilt. Just, "I'm sorry for how I treated you. I hope you're doing well." I didn't reply. Not because I hated her, honestly, I didn't. I just didn't need to reopen a door I'd finally had the strength to close. Some people think walking away is weakness, that staying and enduring somehow proves your worth. But let me tell you, sometimes, the strongest, bravest thing you can do is stand up, walk out, and choose yourself. I was humiliated, betrayed, and used. But I didn't stay broken. I got up. I moved on. And now, I live a life that no longer needs anyone's permission to be full, joyful, and mine. So if you're sitting there, wondering if it's time to stop waiting, to stop hoping someone will finally treat you right, maybe this is your sign. You're not a backup plan. You're not a placeholder. You're not a loser. You're someone who deserves better. And better starts when you finally believe that and act on it. I did. And it changed everything.